My name is Samir. I've been coaching people for almost 5 years. And in my experience of coaching people specifically on the topic of porn addiction, I've helped them across different areas of life, as oftentimes they are interconnected. And one of those things is worth. A lot of people come up to me, and there's often this problem that they don't feel worthy. They want to quit porn, they want to achieve goals. Why? So that they can feel worthy. But there's just this one thing, this one little thing I'm about to present to you in this video. It's so simple, by the way. It's so easy to apply. Most people don't know it. And because of that, they never feel worthy. And it makes it harder for them to achieve their goals. It makes it harder for them to move on permanently from bad behaviors like PMO, for example. And overall, they just feel negative in their life. Yes, like they make progress. They go maybe to the gym. They have their relationship, their family, for example. But they're not really making real progress. And even if they were to make real progress, they wouldn't see it because of that self-worth problem. And I call this the self-worth myth. Once you really dismantle this myth, and it's going to be very easy to do it and very effortless, you're going to see that you can feel worthy right now, constantly. And as a byproduct of that, your life will do a complete 180. You'll make the most amount of progress you'll ever make within the next few weeks. Quitting behaviors like bad behaviors like PMO, maybe social media, scrolling, and so on will be easier than ever, and you'll live a fulfilling and meaningful life. I'm telling you. So watch this video, obviously apply the steps. If there's a question, answer the question. Take 5 to 10 minutes to really answer it in depth, and you'll see that your whole life will completely change. All right, guys, so let's talk about self-worth and how to feel worthy right now. I hope to shock your mind with this because we've been falling into a lie when it comes to self-worth. And when we really start to question things, we realize the reason why we don't feel worthy of things is because of this one belief. So let me go over it. The problem, okay, is most often times we think that we need to achieve things in order to feel worthy. Or sometimes we think that we need to remove things from our past in order to feel worthy. So let's say, for example, someone did something that they think was really bad. And I'm going to make a video on guilt, obviously, because guilt can easily be tackled, in my opinion. I really like the CBT approach, the cognitive behavioral therapy approach, which is like you can just ask yourself, look, would the version of you that did this bad thing in the past, let's say you watch a certain type of porn and you're like, this is disgusting. That's one example. It could be much worse than this. But would this version of you currently, if he had the knowledge back then, would he have done this? Would he have took the same action? Did the same bad thing, the same mistake? And that's when people realize, okay, well, yeah, that old version of myself, I don't need to feel guilty. It's just like it didn't have the same information, it didn't have the same knowledge. And that's how you can realize, okay, well, I don't need to feel guilt because feeling guilt is just going to hold me back. And I'm just feeling guilt just because of this belief that I am still like the old version of myself for whatever reason. Anyways, I'm not going to dive in too much into guilt in this video. Let's go to the main topic, which is self-worth. So self-worth is not tied to your achievements. Self-worth is not tied to your achievements. Self-worth is not something you achieve. It doesn't come after a certain number of achievements. By achievements, it doesn't just mean like, for example, okay, well, you make money or you get married and you have a woman in your life. Oftentimes, like these are the things that we think about when we think of self-worth. But it can also be like, okay, you have like a nice physique. Okay, it can be like you're very knowledgeable about your faith. Okay, it can be like you, whatever it is for you, based on oftentimes that's influenced by culture, whatever your culture values. Well, you think, okay, if I have that, then I'll be valuable in the eyes of other people. But as we know, like we achieve those things. Let's say, for example, our parents tell us, okay, well, the moment you'll have a degree, like you'll be worthy, but then you get a degree, and then a few months later, you're like, okay, like I don't care about that, or maybe you achieve a goal, and you're like, just a few months before that, you were like, okay, I'm gonna feel worthy if I were to achieve this goal, and I fall into this trap, and then suddenly it's your new baseline. You don't feel worthy. You take, okay, once I achieve this other thing, I'll then feel worthy. And that's the thing, you don't suddenly become worthy later, actually. So I'll give you like an example of the diploma. So this is hypothetically, but it's still something that we could use in this example and in our day to day. So imagine, okay, that two guys, they get their diploma in the same exact field and the same exact grades and so on. Okay, and let's say the first guy, he feels worthy because getting a diploma is highly valued in his culture. Most people drop out, and getting a real job is rare. So, for example, I'll actually like give a personal example. I was talking to my father, and he told me like the people around him in his environment when he grew up, that a lot of them didn't actually go for studies. And sure, nowadays maybe that's a bit more popular, but back then I guess it wasn't as popular. And so for him to just go and do 3 years of studies, only 3 years, right after high school, which is like until the age of like 20 or 21, he said that it gave him an advantage. And it's like obviously he didn't say, oh, I felt worthy and they didn't feel worthy, but you see, like it was like highly valued, and it's like it was different and more valuable in terms of like he could make more money because of that. um it's like it was different, right? That's what I mean by worthy. And so I say, okay, well, that's the case, but then, and this is the other example, which is okay. For example, another guy might get a degree, but everyone gets degrees around him, so he doesn't feel worthy. He thinks that okay, once maybe I achieve a master's or a PhD, then he's going to feel worthy in his culture, because people don't really care about, let's say, a bachelor, not just an associate degree, maybe a bachelor. So that's when you question, okay, well, and because you can easily take that example and apply it to different aspects of life, where someone could achieve the same exact thing, but based on the settings, meaning based on the environment, the culture, and the expectations, they could feel completely different. Or based on their own perception of the achievement itself, they're going to feel different. This guy, of course, I don't mean that he's going to feel worthy for the rest of his life, but he's going to feel worthy much more than the guy that just gets his degree and he thinks that, it's nothing. It's just like the normal. That he needs to feel worthy. He's going to feel worthy the moment he gets a PhD or a master's. So that really shows, is it about like the work ethic? Because they both worked the same number of years and they both did the same things and they got the same grades. Is it about the achievement? Probably not, right? They get the same diploma in the same field of studies. It's about the meaning that they gave to it and their belief that they must feel worthy or not based on that action alone. And when you realize that, you realize, okay, it's not just about action, it's about just belief. Anyways, let me dive a bit deeper, right? Like I say, like, okay, they both did 4 years of hard work, same field of study, same new job offers. So what happens is, it's not your actions or achievements that makes you feel worthy. Again, it's not your actions or achievements that makes you feel worthy. It's a decision to feel worthy based on how you think about your actions and achievements. And again, I'm not going to say only actions and achievements, because sure, you can just like reflect right now. And I've done this where there were points I was like, man, like I'm behind and everything. And even though like a day before that I was like, man, I'm really like, I feel confident, I feel worthy, I think like I'm on the right path. And then the day after I feel like I'm on the wrong path. And I was like thinking, okay, well, I traveled to these countries, which most people would dream of, and I got the chance to do that. And then I started feeling worthy. And that's when I realized, okay, I felt worthy just because of a memory, because of a thought. And that's when I realized, okay, well, it's just a decision. And we all know, this is just an example. Well, we all know like the worthy guy without achievements. Actually, today I was talking about this, and this is like something I talked about in the past. That we often have, like, for example, let's say a guy watches porn, and let's say he watches porn maybe just once a week or once a month. And he thinks, well, because I have this habit, I cannot get into a relationship. I cannot get married because I have this habit in my life. But then we know a lot of people that did get into relationships, maybe even marriages, well, because it depends on how you, I mean, it depends on your environment, but that do get into those relationships and marriages, yet they still like struggle with PMO. They still went back to PMO, but they did not think that they're unworthy of relationships or marriages because of the decision to PMO. Whilst a guy that thinks that he's unworthy because of a decision to PMO completely blocks himself from getting married. That's, for example. We all know the guy that's like very confident, a worthy guy without achievements. Like he has nothing going on in his life. Maybe he dropped out. He's just working like this job, yet he acts like he's the boss, not in an arrogant way. Just like feels like he has boundaries and everything. So is it a question of like this guy needs to achieve more? No, because he feels worthy before achieving things. So this is where you see, okay, why am I waiting to feel worthy? Because look, the same exact things with the same exact people, even though they're imaginary. The first guy could say, okay, I earned a bachelor's degree. Yes, my environment only values a master's or a PhD. Sorry, this is the second guy. But getting this bachelor shows that I have a strong work ethic, so I feel worthy. He could think that. You can think of so many different things or whatever, and then feel worthy. The other guy could be like, oh yeah, I earned a bachelor's degree, but I know my culture values this degree, but to me, real success in life is freedom and traveling. So I'm not going to feel fully worthy until I can travel the world. And sure, these examples are not real examples. Sure, there might be people though that actually like this specific thing happens to them, but you see how that happens in different aspects of life. So another issue that we have, and this is something I talk about, it's I say to people, well, if you think you should quit porn, for example, rather than wanting to quit porn, then there's a difference. There's a good noticeable difference between both, because we often live our lives based on shoulds, and I see this all of the time, and that creates guilt, that creates negative emotions. I don't mean shoulds as in like, let's say for example you have a specific let's say for example you have like because there's things that like, yeah, you should, like for example respect your parents, and maybe you don't want to, but you should, right? So there are like nuances, but if you live your life thinking, okay, yeah, I should be like David Goggins because and be highly disciplined all of the time, I should, rather than, oh yeah, I want to maybe live that life where I'm more disciplined and I work very hard consistently. And that's the thing. We learn, okay, I should have done this or achieved that before I feel worthy. I should have a PhD before I feel worthy. I should be muscular before I feel confident. Very common one. I should have financial success before I feel worthy to get married. Whatever. It's these should that you think, okay, when I get this, I'll feel worthy. But then you get this and you think, okay, well, no, I'm looking at the other thing in order to feel worthy that I should have. Oh yeah, getting a job. Okay, I got a job that's paying good, thank God. But oh yeah, I need to get a job that pays this amount instead. Then I'll feel worthy. And really, when we really look at it, we see that we use negative emotions in order to fuel us. And there's nothing wrong with that. And this is what I'm going to present in this video. But that is that it is not the best fuel. You have better fuels available. So ask yourself this. The question becomes, how can it's not like it's not how can I feel worthy. Sorry, I meant it's not how can you feel worthy, because you can do this by thinking about something you've already done. You can literally start saying, okay, you know what? I'll be selective with my thoughts. I'll think about like my achievements. I'll think about that one good action I did. Maybe you worked hard at your job for a full week, which shows your work ethic. Or maybe you remind yourself, I read a valuable book. like I read a book. For example, I used to, for example, finish a book in my mind when I was a bit younger, a few years ago, and be like, wow, man, like I feel worthy, man. No one reads books. Like I have this opportunity. Opportunity. Sorry, I meant I had done something that most people don't even take the time to do. Now I think that if I read a book, sure, it's gonna maybe give me an advantage in different areas of life, but it's not that meaningful. It's not gonna make me feel quote unquote worthy in that sense. So instead, ask yourself, do you think, and this is very important, do you think feeling worthy could benefit you more than not feeling worthy? Do you think feeling worthy could benefit you more than not feeling worthy? And list the reasons why feeling worthy could actually help you. Do this. You will see that sure, you might feel like you're delusional, and let's talk about it. You might think, why should I feel worthy just by focusing on the positive? Because the common fear is that like if you always feel worthy, if you always feel maybe not like 100% good, because we know that we won't always feel good, but to feel like constantly worthy or trying to feel constantly worthy, that we won't be motivated to change because it's like we don't have any negatives that we need to change. And many people believe that negative emotions are what create motivations to improve themselves. And again, I don't really deny that theory 100%, but I challenge that it is the best way to go about things. So the counter argument, one of the biggest benefits of this delusion of constantly feeling worthy is that you can still be just as motivated to constantly improve. Because first of all, if we were to talk about change and wanted to change yourself, sure, a negative emotion might be the spark. Might be like, okay, oh yeah, I actually need to do something about my life. I'm not gonna say, I'm not saying that you should feel positive and fully confident all of the time. You need to accept that there's going to be negative things. You're going to feel negative. That's normal. That's part of life. But then you can be motivated. For example, I talk about this all the time. You can desire the hard work and really just desire that so much that that's all you want to do. And entrepreneurs often talk about this. I've talked about this with one of the guys I met when I was in South Africa, and he told me like most people that because he helps entrepreneurs, and he said like most people I talk to, it's easier for them to be constantly productive and constantly work than to take a break. Whilst for most other people, in that sense, like people that don't work as much, it's much more easier for them to not want to work and not do anything and take a break all of the time, let's say, than to work. And for them, working is uncomfortable. Whilst for people that work a lot, for them, work is comfortable. And to be honest, I kind of fall under this category. I love just doing things that will improve my life and coaching people and doing the best as I can. Gym, faith, all of those things. And it's like I feel comfortable doing the hard work that's going to move my life forward, and I feel almost uncomfortable not doing it. I'm like not to the point where I have like anxiety and I can't spend time with my family. Not to that point, obviously. But now, because you feel worthy, okay, this is the thing. Because you feel worthy, you're actually more likely to take action, the kind of action a worthy person would take. And that really clicked with me also, and I remember talking to a guy. That he was, I think he was pretty young. He was 24 years old, and this is not the only guy I've saw. Like I've saw one of my closest friends also do this, where they didn't have like any kind of like financial stability. They didn't think like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be. I have so much money now. I can start a family, get married, but yet they still went after it. And guess what happens? They start almost like their life improves much more because they go after, for example, let's say marriage, and because of that they need to be more responsible and they need to work harder if they want to be married, for example. And so what happens is suddenly they felt worthy of doing this despite not having or what most people think that you need to have like non-negotiables before looking for marriage, yet they went for it because they felt worthy of it. They had that confidence, and women were like, oh, look, he's a confident, and sure, maybe he's not making as much money, but he feels, I'm obviously shouldn't say he feels worthy, but they still go after it and they realize, oh, I can actually get that. Maybe it's also start a business. Like, think about it. Like, if you think, for example, if you start a business where you need to talk to other people and you don't feel worthy, it's going to be hard for them to even um, trust you 100% because you don't trust yourself in that sense. So then if you feel worthy because you decide to think about or believe that you must feel worthy because of how you are, and it's going to benefit you to feel worthy rather than be to your detriment, then you're going to be much more likely to engage in things that will be maybe risky but very rewarding, or maybe to just put yourself out there and do things that a worthy person would do. This is just arguments. So the summary is really reflect on the benefits you'll gain from feeling worthy rather than unworthy. And that is it for the video, guys.